There's the clap. That means we've started.
There it is.
That means they're here. Welcome to episode number 2. Episode number 2.
Yep. The pilot made it through.
The pilot made it through.
Didn't get canceled.
We didn't get canned. That's excellent. Welcome to ParentCast, episode number 2. I'm Jeff. This is Ross. Hopefully you figured that out by now. What's going on midweek right now and Sundays for Interstate 5?
For Interstate 5, midweek this coming Wednesday, I'll be in the underground just like normal, and starting a new Christmas series that we're excited about called Marvelous Light. Yeah. So that'll lead us up through kind of the Advent season and then to Christmas break. So looking forward to that. And then Sundays, they're going through the Bible like normal. Not exactly sure what point they're at right now. Sure. I was up there this week, but not for very long. So, but kind of just making their way through the Old Testament with the goal of, by the time this school year ends, leading up to Jesus and seeing how everything in the Old Testament, the New Testament, points toward Him.
That's awesome.
So really excited about what they're doing right now.
If I've got a 5th grader, what's a real simple question I can ask?
In Sunday mornings, you could simply just kind of ask where they're at in the Bible and kind of help them kind of walk through the timeline they've seen so far, because that's the goal. That's the reason that we do what we're doing in there, is to help kids have a timeline to kind of hang Bible events on, so that they don't just seem like these things that happen in isolation, but something that happened on a whole, one big story that's unfolding in Scripture. And then the Wednesday night stuff is pretty simple, because we're heading into the Christmas season and talking about, that's what's on every kid's mind right now, is that Thanksgiving's kind of a formality to get through at this point, and then, hey, on to the real thing.
Right.
And so it's real easy to just kind of say, what have you been learning about Christmas and
awesome.
This marvelous light thing that's going on Wednesday night. So it's a pretty easy lead in to start a conversation about Jesus, the birth of Christ, and the significance that has for us.
Sure. And then in middle school, 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, we've got some other things going on. Tell us about what's going on midweek and Sundays.
Sundays we're just kind of our normal routine right now. 6th and 7th girls together, 6th and 7th boys together, and 8th grade is combined, kind of all studying different things right now. And then on Wednesday nights, like we said in the last podcast, we're still in our catchphrase series. This coming week, we look at the word belief.
Love this series so far.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And we're looking at what it means to believe, and kind of spinning that to where it's not just subscribing to a list of facts necessarily and saying, I believe these statements, but I believe in and have experienced the person of Jesus. So more so than just, I don't have a relationship with these facts, even though those facts and knowing what you believe is important, it's still recognizing that, it has to go from head knowledge to something that we feel, something that we that we've experienced, a relationship with Jesus, as opposed to just allegiance to a list of bullet points or something like that.
So if I'm a parent of a middle schooler and I want to engage them in a conversation, maybe cue them to talk about something, what's a real easy question I can ask?
An easy one this week, we're going to be using the illustration of a trust chair. So basically, cool. I can believe that chair will hold my weight.
Well, I can
believe that chair exists and everything, but it doesn't really matter until I sit down in it.
Sure.
Until I act on that belief and say, this. So asking them about the chair illustration would be a great lead into what we talk about.
That's awesome. I love that illustration. That's excellent.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
one.
Gonna steal it.
All right.
That's great. So then we've got you've got a couple of special events coming up. Let's talk about those really quick right now. You've got it's coming up in January, but the deadline is coming up here in December. We talked about it last week, but tell us a little bit more about Winter Retreat. Yeah,
our annual Winter Retreat is coming up pretty soon, January 13th through the 15th in Lawton, Michigan at Miracle Camp. Same place as last year, but had a blast, so we're going back again. But if you want to get your kids signed up or have any more questions, be sure to check out the student information kiosk. We got brochures.
The sick!
We got all kinds of brochures there that has all the details that you would need, all the waivers that need to be filled out. Payment, it's $115 for the whole weekend, and that's food, lodging, everything. The deposit is only $35 to reserve that spot. And the deposit will be due December 18th, so getting close to that deadline date. So if your kid wants to come, be sure to get that stuff turned into the big orange box.
The big orange box
before
at the sick. So then when it comes to high school, we've got a bunch of things going on. Right now on this past Sunday, let's talk about Sundays first. We've been talking about this curriculum called Can I Ask That? And there was a study done of atheist leaders all across the country and on college campuses. And they asked the question, why did you walk away from your faith? For the ones that used to be a part of their faith. And the response was, well, the church never addressed the questions. It wasn't that they disagreed with the answers; they just never addressed the questions. Big questions. So this last Sunday, we actually talked about can I be a Christian and believe in evolution. So we kind of broke down what that looks like, and really just offered a framework for which students can really start to wrestle through those things, so that when they leave our little bubble, they have the opportunity to kind of think through those things in a way that is productive. But then on Wednesday, we're diving into a new series. This week, we're starting this thing called Presence Over Perfection. And we're looking at John 15 this week, and how Jesus says, you have to abide in me, right? You're the branches, I'm the vine, you're the branches. You have to abide in me if you want to produce fruit. You can't do anything without me. So we're looking at that because perfection says, do it on your own self, do it out of your own strength, do it on your own plan. When presence says, just be with me. And so the main question we're going to ask at the end of the message on Wednesday and into our small groups is, do you love Jesus or do you love the stuff he does for you? Because there's really a question there. If I just love Jesus because he's my butler, then it's all on myself, right? He's just serving me.
Yeah.
But if I love Jesus just because I love Jesus, and I want to spend time with him and be in his presence, that's a different dynamic. And so that's a big question. That's a question a parent could ask. A couple events need to let you know about this Thursday. This Thursday, we're going to a We Are Messengers Christmas concert, and it's $7. You can either buy tickets through us, or you can buy tickets online. We'll send you a link in the show notes. Show notes. I just said that. Show notes. But that's happening. We'll leave here at 5:45. The bus will leave here. Parents are welcome to come if you want to come to the concert with your kids.
High school kids, right?
High school kids, yeah. Totally cool with that. And then we'll be back 9:15, 9:30. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour to get to Woodburn. It's at Woodburn Missionary Church. It's happening. And then also we released the information about Belize, the Global Impact trip this year, which is happening in July. But there's an interest meeting on December 18th at noon upstairs, and that's for parents and students. So if anybody's interested, we'll have applications out soon to where they can apply. We're still working on getting that done, so we might be able to do it online. But the interest meeting is December 18th in Student Chapel, and we want to be a part of that if you're interested at all in going to Belize this year. We're really excited about it. So, Ross, when it comes to parents, we just got out of Thanksgiving. Obviously, a pretty concentrated time of being with family, hopefully. But there's that thing that kind of happens when we get into the regular, run of the mill and the crazy schedule of the rest of the week.
Well, especially in December.
Yeah,
when Christmas gets close.
It just kind of ramps up, doesn't it?
Parties every other day.
Party every other day in this office, that's for sure. With Bob. I'll tell you about Bob some other time. But if there's one thing a parent can do, when it comes to interacting with their student, sometimes when you say, hey, how was your day? It's always fine. Or, okay.
All right, see ya.
What'd you do at school today? Nothing. It's going to be so hard to engage a teenager in a productive conversation about life. There's like one concept we talk about around here, and it's this word cue. And so, this conversation is to hopefully cue parents on a conversation that they can have with their students. But if there's a way for students and parents to interact, there's like one thing. And how can we help that conversation happen? It's really allowing a student to cue us, right?
Yeah.
And allowing, being in a spot where a student can actually have a conversation with us. We talked about three principles, three simple principles to helping a parent allow a student to cue them. What's the first one?
The first one we've been looking at lately is being available. And that's a huge one. I mean, you can't really have a conversation with your kid if you're not available.
Right.
You can't really have that face-to-face time if you're not there.
Yeah.
And this one can be hard because I think we usually just assume that there's going to be time for that.
Sure.
There's going to be, we'll have time this weekend, or we'll have time over Thanksgiving break or over Christmas break. They're going to be a lot more available. But as all of us know, when there's free time, it tends to get chopped up and occupied really quickly. And so even though it sounds weird, I think being available requires putting it on the schedule.
Sure, absolutely.
And just saying, you know what, this is a day when all of us are just going to be at home. Mm-hmm. And we're going to hang out and we're going to have dinner together. We're going to do all this stuff. And it's just going to have to be like, okay, put it on the calendar. Everybody's going to be home at this point. Because I think that, especially as we get closer to the holidays and everything just gets crazy and busy, that's the only way that it happens, is if you actually just, what gets put on the calendar gets done.
Right.
And so I think that's a huge one, is not only just saying, I'm available to my kids, but actually making it happen to where there is going to be time to just hang out together, watch a movie together, play video games together, whatever availability looks like to you and your family.
And it might be a day, or it might be an hour. It might be
it wouldn't have to be a whole day.
Together.
Hey, this afternoon or this evening, we're not gonna. Yeah. There's no practices going on. We're not gonna be out at work late or anything. And so we're just gonna. This is gonna be some downtime for us.
That's awesome. You know, you can schedule to be available, but part of the thing is too is you have to be accessible to your kids, right? I know I can be available. I can be around students. But if I'm buried in my phone or I'm thinking about work, I'm not actually engaging them. So being accessible to students, so making sure that I'm in proximity with them. So for me, it's with students. With parents, it's with their kids. I don't know why those two words are different, but they are. Maybe it makes it so I'm not creepy. But being in proximity with kids is huge. You know, I think of the different times I was with my mom and dad, and we'd be in the same room and we'd be watching a television show. The West Wing was our big show. We loved The West Wing, and if we could vote for Jen Bartlett. Anyway, I'm not going there. But that was a time where my mom and dad and I and my brother, sometimes my brother, would be in the same room, and we'd be able to have conversations about what was on the television, so productive conversations about that, or just life in general, like when I was in trouble, you know, or that was the spot where that happened. So being accessible to students, I think, is a big thing. There's one more that's kind of like, it's probably the biggest of them all when it comes to this, but what's the last thing that can help a parent allow their kid to cue them?
Yeah, I mean, once you're available and accessible and in a conversation, I think it's huge to be authentic with your kids. And this is hard because I feel like as parents, a lot of times I'm not quite there yet because my conversations with my daughter are interesting, to say the least right now. They're more one way. But I think it's tempting as a parent. Even now, I think, man, when she asks questions about the Bible or about God, I need to be the answer man. Like, I need to be the one that... She's like, wow, you're exactly right, Dad. I'm never going to have a question about that again.
My mind is now complete.
Or we tend to want to like over spiritualize things or try to make it like, I don't know, to where they're just like, wow, Dad, you are a spiritual giant or something. When honestly, I think the thing that would be more important was to kind of mention, you know, I've struggled with that question too. Or that whole evolution that you guys have been talking about. Not just trying to say, you know, this is exactly the right answer and this works for me, so it should work for you. But being willing to kind of say, yeah, that's a difficult topic, and kind of letting them see the struggles, the wrestling, the journey that you've been on to get to where you're at, I think speaks volumes, because then they can see, you know what, it's okay to have issues or questions because my dad or my mom had struggled with that, but they came out on the other side okay. And they came out not only okay, but with a deeper relationship, a deeper perspective on that issue than they ever would have had if they just blindly accepted something that somebody else told them. Yeah, that's so good. You know, I heard it said that, you know, when you see when somebody like just puts a blanket statement like, this is what I believe, like on Facebook or something like that, most likely you're seeing the last line of the discussion that they've had in their head. That there's a big long, they've probably arrived there over a course of conversations, time, thoughts, like you're saying. And the more we can allow our kids and our students into that conversation, not just the last line, it's better for them, because now they see how we think, right? They see how we think. They see how their parents are thinking. You know, you're so it's so good. Be authentic with your kids and allow them to see that journey. That's such a good point. It lets them know they're not alone. I mean, just like that. It's like, oh, other people have dealt with this too. I'm not the only person that's had to go through this issue. And it's the same kind of thing, knowing that people that you look up to have been where you're at. It just, I don't know, it feels a whole lot, it normalizes things. It makes me feel like, okay, maybe this is just a normal part of my faith journey. It's not the end of the world for me.
That's good. So parents, allow students to cue you. Allow students to cue you, and do it by being available, by scheduling time to do it, being accessible, by being in proximity with them, and being authentic, allowing them to see inside your story and know a little bit more about that. That's great. That's good stuff. Hey, we would love to answer questions. We love answering questions. We love answering your questions. And so if you've got a question, you're going, I would love for Jeff and Ross at least to hear their perspective. We're not like, if we can do this, anybody can do this. Really, that's really, anybody else could be sitting in this seat and talking about some of this stuff. But we would love love to at least give you perspective from what we see in students and middle school students, high school students, different things. So we'd love to have a conversation with you. And so if you've got you're going, man, we just want them to answer this question, send Ross or I. We can send both of us, either of us, an email. Ross at Hope MC, Jeff at Hope MC. Make sure you spell the name right. Otherwise, it won't get to me.
Yeah.
It just literally won't get here. You'll get it back. And put in the subject line, put ParentCast question, and maybe we'll bring them up. Maybe we'll just respond to you specifically, or we'll bring them up here if we feel like that's a great question. And we would love to respond to those. But yeah, so this has been episode number 2 of the ParentCast.
Yep.
I'm sure we've gone long.
Maybe.
I'm sure we have.
It tends to
because
happen.
this is the way it goes. And we don't have executive producer Chris Kuntz in here to tell us if we've gone long or not. So we're just going to try and be as close to 10 minutes as we can. Thanks for joining us for this ParentCast episode number 2. And we'll see you on when we see you.
Yep. See ya.
Have a good one.